What's going on, everyone? It's Dr. Jordan Seda coming to you live from NYC. Are you ready to go to health and back? All right, let's get it. All right, everyone. I hope everyone had an amazing holiday, whether you celebrate Boxing Day, Christmas, Kwanzaa, any of the other holidays. I hope you're well and hopefully avoiding this COVID shitstorm that's upon us. But anyway, I wanted to roll in and introduce a special guest I have today, Mr. Randy Bowen. Randy, what's going on, man?
Good morning, sir. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is well. As Jordan mentioned, COVID is crazy right now. Crazy. Stay safe.
Yeah, so Randy, you're also in New York. How has COVID affected you and your fam the past couple weeks? Because I know I've had plenty of clients call out because they got sick or close contacts with people. What's up with you?
Because I'm in this school system. I'm a guidance counselor. Been a guidance counselor for 14 years. So I started noticing the uptick, around November. We had a lot of kids who had to quarantine. A lot of kids close contact. Two kids tested positive. A true story. One of my seniors comes up to me. I'm walking to a class that I teach. He says, "Hey, Mr. Bowen, I just tested positive for COVID," and he's like face to face with me. I'm like, okay, you try to remain calm in that situation, but you're like, oh my god, like, do I run away? Do I like knock him out? Um, and then he actually tested twice for COVID. So that was like a reality where I'm like, okay, and then next day half my class is gone, and I have a class of 32 kids, and that class turned into like 13 one day just off of quarantine.
Wow.
And then family wise, it's Christmas. So I wasn't able to spend time because there's a debate in my household with whether you should be vaccinated or not. And so with a baby now, I had to kind of stay away. So it's been a very weird Christmas, but still alive, still healthy. So can't complain.
Yeah, I guess having our health is one of the truest things to be grateful for during this time. Now, are the schools planning to open up after the winter break?
Oh, the Department of Education has no intention of shutting down. It's going to be interesting to see with the new mayor and a new chancellor kind of how they proceed. But as far as what we're hearing, they have no plans of shutting anything down. I think Mr. Adams maybe shares the same sentiments as De Blasio as far as kids are safer in school. Whether that's accurate or not, that has yet to be determined. They've kind of shifted the criteria for when a class is shut down or when a school is shut down. So we haven't had many shutdowns as much as we've had maybe this time last year. Um, but who knows? I think they want us there. They want us to function. I think they're focusing on the educational loss, which is a reality. And I know, some people don't know about it or don't believe in it, but yeah, I mean, having the kids go to remote without proper preparation is showing now when they're back in the classroom. So as far as I know, we're full steam ahead.
Oh man, so yeah, it's crazy because I've known you for some time now, and I know that you're a school counselor, and you spend a lot of your time helping these children develop, and you are an integral part of helping them get to the next level, which for many of them would be college. So I can't imagine during this time it's very easy to go on college visits to expose children to different resources. So to that point, I always think about being a child in this generation compared to when I was a child going through school and when you were a child going through school. So aside from COVID just totally ruining, well, not ruining everything, but posing considerable obstacles to children, what else have you come across recently or even in the past few years that are some of the greatest obstacles our children face in schools today?
I believe there's an article from the United States Surgeon General, and one of the top three crises that we're living through is the mental health crisis, and he said specifically amongst kids, and that is evident. I mean, our social work department has ramped up, like taken on a lot more interns this year. Our middle school social worker, I ran into her week before school closed. She said there's been an uptick in suicidal ideation. I'm seeing it in conversations with students related to college. Before COVID, we would get, 15, 20 kids that, or 25 that would say, I want to attend school outside of New York City. Now you have maybe like 6 or 7. And then it's the actual impact that they're feeling in the household. So, a lot of their parents are still trying to find jobs. They themselves is also, thinking about like when we were younger, how we were dying for like a part-time job or like dying for a summer job. All my students have jobs, and it's insane how many, like everybody has a job, which is putting additional stress and pressure on the educational process for them. So mental health is definitely something that has been attacked by COVID and is continuing to be attacked. And it's not so much the initial impact; it's like the residue of it, the fear. I can't walk outside. I'm sitting next to someone that has a mask that could be a close contact. Um, you have students in foster care and in group home now, and their situations are even worse because they don't have a solid structure at home. So it is if you know an educator, make sure you hug them with their permission, of course, because it is like the battlefield out there when it comes to mental health. And even as someone who deals with college, my students are 11 and 12 graders, so they're 17, 18 years old. So they're preparing to become adults, and they're asked to be, and they were before, but I think it's worse now. They're asked to like really hold down the household and at the same time study and at the same time make sure that their futures are right, and that's a lot to ask these young people.
Yeah, but I guess to one point, I think it's a great thing that the students are utilizing those services, those resources that you provided for them with the social workers in school. I didn't even know you had that available. So, do you think that's partially a product of mental health awareness just being more prevalent now and students feeling more comfortable reaching out when they need help?
So I think it's been the premise of the school before we hired an additional social worker. So before I got there, we had a social worker, but the premise of the school, as far as the principal that started it, was all about connecting with kids, all about social emotional before anything. Academics and everything else came later, and I think that we just kind of held on to that torch and kept it going with the addition of a social worker. But I mean, from the time that I've been there, when I started, that principal wanted to implement an advisory system where you have adults who are responsible for 8 to 10 students every day, checking in with them, making sure that everything is okay. Um, and then we shifted that towards more academics, but still interweaving the social emotional. Unfortunately, we had a student who committed suicide in 2013, and that is what kind of ramped up social work and social emotional even more, to where our social worker took on interns. And then fast forward to 2 years ago, before I had that knee surgery that you supported me with, I told my principal, like, we need more. And this is before COVID. I was like, we need more social emotional support for the kids, because the college process is a beast in itself. And also, what you're seeing is you want to start that process earlier. So that kind of takes away time from dealing with okay, well, I'm not feeling great. And so I had asked him to hire a social worker, which he did, which has been a blessing, because now with COVID, and who could have told this is where we would be at. Um, it is absolutely necessary to have multiple adults responsible for students, and then we're a small school, so I don't know how many students. I was in the school that we had almost 2,000 kids. I never saw a guidance counselor or a social worker, and maybe I did need it, and you don't even know. Um, and that's a beautiful part about assessments too, right? Like that's the next step in this whole process, and I think that's what people are more aware of, is that you don't have to have one person walking around chasing every single kid. You do an assessment, and then that can help you figure out, okay, this kid is struggling with this, or this group of kids is struggling with this. You put them together to support each other, and I think that lends itself to being a comprehensive program. So I think we've always, to your question, had it, but I think we are, calibrating it as we go, and making it better.
So when a student enrolls in your school, they undergo a health assessment.
A mental health assessment and a social emotional mental health assessment. So the good thing about our school as well is we have a school-based health clinic, which a lot of schools, I'm not sure if they do or they don't. So we're a community school, and the idea of that is exactly how it sounds. every student needs multiple different things in order to be successful, whether it's vision care, whether it's a checkup, whether it's hearing, whether, food, so on and so forth. So we provide all these services, so like a la carte. Um, so every student that walks in the door receives in middle school a mental health, a social emotional assessment from the social worker. And then from there is connected to social work interns or the social worker herself. And then in high school, kind of continue that process as well, just because, you want to update your data as time goes by. Um, and then they get to me and it's like, okay, we have a entire picture of kind of who this kid is and last 7 years, which, try to take advantage of because they're with us for a long time versus the traditional middle school, high school split. And then, hopefully we've helped and supported them and provided them with tools to be equipped to handle what life has to throw in their way.
Oh man. But even after all this time, you still want to be a guidance counselor.
Well, I think so. I think, I think in any profession, maybe you've had it too, you think about, obviously, do you still want to do this? And are you doing it at a level that you started with? I think that's everybody's thing, right? Like where it's like, all right, I worked really, really hard my first, second, third year. Am I still producing or giving off that same energy 13, 14 years later? So you do have your moments where you're like, okay, well, I don't know if this is going to be the end all be all. And for me, coming from finance, I came from finance before, I wasn't always in education. You always get that little bug where it's like, oh man, like, do I want to go back in? Do I want to go into real estate? Is this something, But yeah, man, I mean, as far as today, if you ask me today, yeah, I still have fun with it. I still enjoy it. There's still moments where you have your lowest of lows. And you have your highest of highs. So in one day, I had a student who is like was getting kicked out of foster care, had to be moved to another one, and it's just and this is around Christmas, and then a period later, a student got into her dream school, and through a full posse scholarship, and this is within in a span of an hour and a half. So you have your extreme high and lows, which can really really wear on you, especially with the holidays as well. You see an uptick in like kids are just not focused or sad because wow, school's going to be closed for 10 days, and this is where they come to kind of escape some of those issues. But yeah, man, 14 years, maybe 14 more, who knows?
14 years.
14 years, 14 years.
Yeah, but I thought you were still in your late 20s. How is that possible?
Oh, black don't crack.
I'll just know that most people won't be seeing you when you said that, so now they can put it to have a visual of what you look like.
Oh man, I had my camera on the whole time for nothing. I
Well,
even shaved.
people can see you. This will be available on YouTube for those who want to see your face, but to those who are just listening on a car ride or whatever, now they know Randy's one of our finer black gentlemen in the world, and definitely a role model for me. Even though I was the provider for him, as Randy said, going through knee surgery, and even before that, I've worked with his wife before, and they're wonderful people. Now, I spend a lot of time educating my clients. It's part of what I do, building a connection with them and educating them on the best ways to take care of themselves, to decrease the likelihood of injury, and get back to achieving the qualities of life that they wish to have. So, in your 14 years of being a counselor, I guess even before or during this time with COVID, what have you found to be the most core principles of being an effective educator to people?
Wow, heavy question. And I told you I had an interesting story for this. So I was actually on another podcast. I will not kind of put them out there, but I had a really bad experience. I had a bad experience because the premise of the conversation was exactly what you're asking, which is what are the techniques and tools? What are the principles? Like, who are you and how can you be an effective? Like, how do you know what you have will make you effective? Before COVID, again, 3 years ago, and in going into marriage counseling, our therapist uh, is a trained in this technique called EMDR. So it's eye movement desensitization reprocessing. So essentially, it's for anyone that has some kind of traumatic event, perhaps anxiety, perhaps depression that stems from this traumatic event that's very deep seated within the brain. So it's a very biological thing. And it's just a technique, though. It's not like you just do EMDR. There's so many things around it. You know, you have to develop rapport with your clients, which is usual. You have to set parameters. You have to provide them with things like controlled breathing, meditation, reflection. There's so many things around it. So I'm on this podcast, and there, you know, three older people. We're talking about kids, and they're from the mentality of, you know, you do as I say, not as I do, like very, very old school, you know, and it's just antiquated because I tried to express them is that kids have access to information that we didn't have. You can fact check your parents with the click of a button. And so they're still operating of the premise, well, we have full control. We have to have full control. What are feelings and emotions? We don't have time for that. This is my ship and this is how I steer it. And what I was trying to say on this podcast was that you have to allow kids to have a voice. A lot of times as adults, when we think about our darkest and most stressful times, is because we felt like we weren't heard, whether it was inside the household, whether it's with a friend, whether it's at a job, whatever the case may be. And so I would think I was able to see that because I've been on this path of reflection, whether it was through the process of this marriage counseling or whether it was just learning how to be a guidance counselor. And I also reminded of a friend who's a father who said, "Kids are your most." He said, "Kids are your best teachers. Like you could learn a lot from kids, and I've learned a lot even from having my own kid. But you have to be aware and receptive to that learning." And so I think that one of the, you know, core educational values is just being able to reflect and not um, being quick to say, you know what, it's about right or wrong. It's about the situation. Not saying that you let your kids kind of run rampant and let them do whatever they want. You have to definitely set parameters, but you also have to instill choice, right? And make them feel comfortable to voice kind of how they feel and express who they are as people. And I think that's at the heart of education. And then I thought about, you know, kind of like, would I be effective in a, let's say, gifted and talented program? Like, my wife she sent me a posting about a position for, and it's like a curriculum writing gifted and talented program, 400 grand a year. I was just like, oh my God, please take that job so I don't have to work and I can be a stay at home dad. Um, but I've never been in a gifted and talented program. And then I was like, well, I don't necessarily think I would be effective because I don't know, wouldn't know how those kids feel, wouldn't know their perspective, wouldn't know the expectation, the pressure, so on and so forth. And in my school, one of the initiatives that we started was just a committee on racial equity. And this happened around, you know, George Floyd's death. And we realized, you know, kids were suffering from that. And I'm like, we were shocked in the sense that COVID was happening and they still were like, wait, this is ridiculous. And I feel a certain kind of way. So we were like, all right, we have to kind of start this initiative. And we got the, you know, students involved, we got the teachers involved. But I think that's also what I noticed about if you're going to be an effective educator, you also have to, you know, be reflective as far as like race and who you're educating. And we can have another podcast on that one where you know, some people feel like, you know, educators of color are more effective for kids of color. And that may not necessarily be true. I think it's about the person. I think about its person experience, ability to reflect, and also to learn, because that's the third step. And that's where we're at. So we highlighted the issue in our school, and our school is predominantly Dominican. And the issue is, you know, um, are our kids aware of their own culture from the Dominican perspective? And then how do they interact with the students who are not? We have Ecuadorians, Mexicans, so on and so forth. And then, you know, second part is like, all right, we make them aware by educating them, but also where's the reflection part? So that's where we are with our teachers, because teachers are by default used to just saying, here's my curriculum and I just want to push that. And we're trying to shift the mentality of, it's not just about your curriculum. You have to be reflective of the person that you're teaching, because Jordan, you think about your favorite teacher in school? Were they your favorite teacher because you walked away knowing the periodic tables of elements by heart? No, right? They were your favorite teacher because, and I'll let you answer. Why was that teacher for you? I saw the smile on your face, so you definitely connected to this person. Why was this person your favorite teacher?
No, I was smiling more because now in this world with so much information, I saw a meme not too long ago where that said, "Well, here's another day that I didn't use the Pythagorean theorem in my life," which is like, I think it's a different point of like the content of material in which we're learning in school that's not so applicable to daily life as an adult. Whereas I think the points that you're touching involving being reflective and giving children a voice, those are things I wish, I think I turned out all right. I wish in my curriculum growing up that was something that was spoken about where, I'm really encouraged to hear that the emphasis is less so on the content of the curriculum, although obviously you need to get into college and understand the baseline level of information, but to understand why you're learning, who you're learning from and with, and how that manifests on a broader in a broader picture is really comforting.
But I think to your point, it does touch on that. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Okay, that's great, right? But that's just a thing. I remember, and I can speak to many educators that I've had where it has nothing to do with what I'm doing with my life. For example, my AP US history teacher, right? He had a situation where, and I don't know, I mean, I might have shared the story with you, but it's a friend of mine that we used to kind of sit, he used to sit behind me or whatever the case may be, take our first AP test. He gets a 93, I get a 92. Next test, and this is 11th grade. Next test, he just says, one of you sit in the front. You're like, huh? Like out of nowhere. And it didn't click until after, because it's like,
Uh,
yeah, if you had like a racist experience, it's
yeah.
one of those where it's like it happens, and you're like, wait, did this just really happen? You have out of body experience. So we take the test. He gets like a 91. I get like a 90. So the proof is there. We have the knowledge. What that teacher didn't see is that, and he actually taught me how to study, like how to really study for college. Like if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been prepared from a study perspective as far as college. The powerful message in this story is we're walking to my friend's home. He doesn't live too far from the school, and he stops us. He's driving. He stops us and he apologizes. That's the reflection part, right? That's the part where it's like, you know what? I made a mistake, and I'm not. I'm okay with owning up to what my mistake is. And from that point on, we had an amazing relationship. But it was AP US history. If you ask me about the war or whatever, I'm like, I don't know. It has nothing to do. I don't remember any of that stuff. What I remember is number one, he taught me how to study, and number two, he showed me that it's just because I'm an adult doesn't mean I'm always right. I can make mistakes, and I recognize my mistake because we're all people. So I think there's power in that.
Yeah, I certainly agree. I think my father is having a little bit of trouble understanding that point. That when he used to advise us as children, it would be the way, like you were saying, like this is what I'm saying, this is how it goes. But I think now that I'm educated and I'm able to have another conversation, I have other sources of information in which to make decisions with. I think he's finally now resigned to the fact that my sons know a thing or two, and maybe I don't. Maybe I should ask them for advice on certain things, like how do I make my food healthier, or what's the best way to travel to some place, and understanding that his sons are resources, and be okay with it. Be okay with knowing that you're not perfect, and that if anything, he should be proud that he raised two sons that can be wonderful sources of information and benefit him moving forward.
Yeah, yeah, but I don't know where your dad's from. My parents are not from this country, so I think a lot of that teaching is based off of fear. It's like a lack of understanding about the environment. It's raising a man of color in the United States, which there's a history behind that. It's not necessarily great. Uh, there's so much pressure that there isn't in their minds any, any area to say, I want this person, I want this kid to question this part. It's like you have to listen to what I'm saying. And if you don't listen to what I'm saying, it literally in some situations can be life or death. Um, and so I think they kind of operate on that premise, and as being an adult now and being someone who's reflective and educated, you understand that it might have been appropriate for the time, but it may not be something that you will continue with your own family.
Yeah, for sure. I just keep going through all these memes that I've seen about all the issues we're talking about, and I can't help but smile. It's like I'll share one of them. It's like I saw before Christmas they had a little boy asking Alexa, if everyone doesn't know what Alexa, everyone should know what Alexa is by now, like the Amazon device that's pretty much listening to all of us in our households.
Mhm.
And he asked Alexa if Santa Claus was real, and the father was sitting like on the couch, and Alexa said Santa wasn't real. So then the father was like outraged that no, that an Alexa broke the news to his son that Santa wasn't real, and the kid was so upset, and he was trying to like, no, Alexa doesn't know what she's talking about. But to your point, you know, there's so much information out there. Like even if we try to teach people one way, it's like they're going to come into situations better informed or overwhelmed, if anything, because there is so much information to digest, and it's really challenging,
Yeah, yeah.
particularly particularly in my field when people come in, they get a diagnosis from a physician, they can look it up and they can be like, oh, but the internet says this, or I read some blog post that says my diagnosis isn't this, but I think you can appreciate that everything's individualized, so it doesn't necessarily fit this any necessary description, and the severity of certain injuries can vary among individuals. So, my challenge is to educate people in that context. Like, what is their willingness to accept what I'm about to say relative to all the information that's laid out there on the internet or through a friend or through the physician, and that's what I deal with. But I think to your point of being an effective educator is understanding where a person is and reflecting on the best possible way to communicate with that person so that you're not coming off as being uh, an authoritarian figure where your way goes, but it's like, okay, this is where you stand. I'm going to sprinkle in information so that you start to absorb where I'm coming from as someone that you're seeking advice and counsel from.
Correct. I think that's, it's called, I think, fluidity. And in your profession, which is the medical field, I love the questioning because I think that it puts pressure on practitioners to make sure that they're up to date with the newest stuff. So I know working with you that you are constantly thinking and educating yourself about these different techniques. And okay, something that was written 50 years ago, somebody wrote something 10 days ago that kind of threw that principle off. Maybe we need to change that. And so that fluidity, definitely in the medical profession, right? Like I think with WebMD and all this stuff, like no longer are doctors just God, where it's like, oh, what I say goes. It's like, no, I want to be a part of my recovery because it's my recovery, right? You're there to guide me, but it's my body, it's my lifestyle. Like I have more to lose than you do, and so making me a partner in the process makes more sense than to just kind of tell me what to do because you'll have a person that's more invested. And I think that's the power in education as well. With me, it's like I can look at a kid and say, all right, like I came from canned goods and paper plates just like you. Like my parents were on welfare just like yours. We didn't have this big household. We didn't have a lot of money. There was you have a language barrier, but I had a cultural barrier because my parents are not from here. So I feel like I'm able to identify with these kids in a way where I'm still listening to their music, even though I'm like, I don't know about this artist. I don't know what they're saying, but but I understand why this is your outlet because Tupac was my outlet, Biggie was my outlet. So you different artists, but you're still utilizing the same techniques to get over whatever your stress is. You still haven't told me who your favorite teacher was and why. You're not avoiding that question, by the way.
Okay, all right. I can think about I would say it was my physics teacher in high school, who was my favorite. He just managed to make class fun. Like I loved physics and I still love physics to this day. It's an integral part of being a physical therapist to understand like force, magnitudes of force, torques, and all that stuff. But the experiments we did in class were just so fun, and he managed to just make. I don't know what else to say except making learning fun. I mean, he did cut on one of my friends one day, which was hilarious. So I think he won a lot of people over with that, even though it was at the expense of my friend, even though he got over it. But yeah, just like you went there and you knew that you were gonna. It was like I literally fell asleep every other history class I had senior year. I literally just put my head down, and I still got an A in that class. But for physics, I know it was AP physics. I knew he was gonna. I knew that I could place out of a college exam, so there was motivation on that part. But it's just like I knew he knew what he was doing. I trusted him completely. Everyone was having a good time in that class. Like we did experiments with like small groups. We would have homework and we'd have to collaborate to problem solve. Like it even got to the point where I was building. You ever see like those robotics competitions or something where people
Yeah.
like, yeah, like I did a mild form of that my senior year. It was like kind of cool to like have my friend come over and build this like little cart that only was basically like being run by like springs and rubber bands. Like it was like we had to be creative to come up with that. But I was challenged in ways I never thought I would be having him as a teacher, and I ended up placing out of college physics, which saved me a lot of time and energy. It was a really valuable experience in my life.
So he sounds like this person said he or she connected with students, were able to have you guys collaborate, empowered you to allow you to be successful and recognize your success.
In a nutshell, that and he went to Princeton, so I had kind of at least the rumor was he graduated from Princeton. So you're just like, okay, well, this guy. It's kind of how people view me from graduating from Columbia, where it's like, I don't know if I necessarily know more now that I'm a seasoned practitioner than I did. I could say at entry level, maybe yes. Maybe I did come in better prepared because I had the resources. But so to that point, a lot of it is just the name carrying
Mhm.
more weight. But whether it was or it wasn't the case, he just knew. He just knew how to get results. And in a way where he wasn't putting so much pressure, like you need to do this in order to get to college or to boost his reputation as a good teacher. He knew you get to a point when you're a maestro that you just know that you're good and you don't have to do any you don't have to say anything. You just the proof is in the pudding.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, man. Wow, we could go on and on. I know that for sure. So hopefully we're not losing people as we keep going on. But yeah, man. So what's it like being a dad? I know you just had a daughter. Was it in July?
Yep. July 8th, man. Emma. Um, oof. It is work, man. As I tell everybody, tell my students, because I have some students that are like, I can't wait to have kids. I was
Yeah,
like, I was like, you guys are kids. Enjoy time to yourself and figuring yourself out. It's a blessing, man. It's a lot of hard work, a lot of schedule. Your schedule is not yours. Your schedule is around this person and this person's needs. You forget anything that you've read or kind of what you had as far as a game plan going into this thing. You just have to be willing to adapt, and I think the message is like you just have to be willing to adapt. If you're not a person that is able to pivot, you're gonna find fatherhood and motherhood very, very difficult because you just don't know where you're gonna get. And I think especially under COVID, it is a little bit more depressing because with kids it's kind of like a village experience where you want your village and people around you to experience this child. And I was just telling the wife yesterday, I was like, there's people that haven't met Emma who love her, and that's amazing. But the thing is that she probably won't be able to meet them for a very, very long time, and I think that's the sad part about it. But it's like I said, kids are teachers. I've learned so much of myself or about myself, even being a reflective person over the last 5 months. So I recommend it, but in due time. And you have to kind of you have to make that time. Like you'll know when, or maybe you won't. I don't know, whatever the circumstances are. But you'll just have to kind of figure it out, and that's the beautiful part. It's like every day is different,
Yeah.
and it's the same at the same time. It's different, but it's the same at the same time. It's the same as far as routines and rituals, but it's different because every day he or she is doing something new, and just just watching you. Like she's like for a while she was just watching, and then one day you go to eat oatmeal, she just grabs the spoon. So for 2 weeks she's been plotting on, I'm gonna grab this spoon,
Mm.
watching, and then boom, gets it. That's learning, and
Yeah.
that's the beautiful part.
Yeah, it's great, man. It sounds like you're taking it all in stride. I definitely recommend. I don't have any children yet, but from what I've seen and heard as well, definitely take your time and wait for the right opportunity when you and your partner are ready. Hopefully, you're able to do it with a partner if that's what you choose. It's kind of crazy. That just reminded me. One of my friends is his wife is pregnant, and he's like, "We're having a she technically, but the child will be a they if they determine whether they want to be a he or she." I was like, "Wow, it's very mindful of the times, but also like that's where we are." And talking about
Dude,
learning, yeah,
yeah, I have a student who identifies um, as whatever the proper terminology is, and I'm like, wow, this is like, what if Emma identified the same way? It's like I'd still love her the same way, and that's growth from if you would have asked me that question when I was younger, because of the neighborhood and how we were raised, where that was like not to not a thing to be, and it's just
yeah,
now it's just a different thing. So yeah, man, I we say the same thing too. It's like she's a she unless she identifies as something else, and at that point, it's still our child, and we'll still love her or him,
yeah.
whatever.
That's cool. Well, anyway, Randy, if anyone wanted to reach out to you to discuss like mental health and school systems in general, maybe fatherly advice or anything, or just want to shoot the breeze with you, where can people reach you?
I guess email is the best, man. My Gmail, randykbowen@gmail.com. Should I have a website at this point? Is that what you're asking?
I mean, that's entire. I mean, your website might be filled with baby pictures, and then on the side, activities for getting through school, applying for college. Yeah, that might be cool to provide a resource for people to apply to school and whatnot. But that's totally up to you. If you want a side
No,
project,
I don't know. I don't need any more side projects. I'm still working on the front project, just
yeah,
getting this place situated and you know trying to stay healthy.
yeah, I hear you. Yeah, unlike me, I have the time for side projects right now. I actually started doing gymnastics.
I saw that. I saw
Yeah,
that. The
yeah,
time
yeah.
that.
It ain't easy, man. It's not easy, but I'm doing all the things right now. I have the time. I have. I also just want to do cool backflips and front flips for capoeira. So eventually, I hope that transfers into that because capoeira has become a passion of mine.
Nice.
So we'll see. I got an aerial arts class waiting for me in January. So
Is
I'm.
that the thing where you kind of hold on? Oh
Yep.
my gosh!
Yep.
And you do like the spins and twirls?
Yep.
Whew. Let me know how that goes, man.
Yep.
You have good insurance?
What's up?
You have good insurance?
Pretty good. Yeah, actually, pretty good. I'm grateful.
Good, good, good.
But anyway, that's all we have for today, beautiful people. I again want to thank Randy for his time and insight. Now get out there and make shit happen.